Joining me today, I have Scott Young. He is the planetarium astronomer with the Manitoba Museum here in Winnipeg. Thank you so much, Scott, for taking the time.
No problem.
So, we've got this thing happening, these planets that are doing something in the sky. Clearly, I am not the professional. Please let us know what's going on.
Yeah, sure. It's been called the Parade of Planets or the Planetary Parade. And basically what we have going on is a chance to see all of the planets in the sky at once. Now, the planets are always up there, of course, and they're in different spots in the sky. But right now, if you go out after sunset, you can basically see all of the planets at once. A couple are a little harder than others, but it's a great time to get out there and do some sky watching.
Which planets are all involved?
Yeah, so the very first thing that you'll notice when you go outside after dark is this brilliant white star that's high up in the southwest. That is actually the planet Venus. It's been there for a couple of months or so, and that's the center point of the planetary parade. I would say it's at its brightest right now. It's just incredibly bright. It doesn't even look like a normal star. People will often report it as a UFO or a space station or something like that. But anyway, that's Venus. Down below Venus, towards the horizon, there's another brightish star about halfway down to the horizon. That's the planet Mercury. And it's the hardest one to normally get into this parade because it's so close to the sun, it's hard to track it down most of the year. So this is the best time of the year for us in Canada to be able to see Mercury. And then below Mercury, we have another one that's going to be the hardest one to spot, I think. It's the planet Saturn. It's coming to the end of its visibility. It's just fading into the sunset, and you might need binoculars to spot that one. It's a little bit tough. So that's three. And then we have going up from Venus up and to the left, the next two brightest things in the sky, Jupiter, which is sort of high up in the south, and then Mars, which is also kind of in the south, but a little bit farther to the left. And then scattered in between there's also Uranus and Neptune. Now, those ones you can't see without a telescope or at least a powerful pair of binoculars, but that makes 7 planets. And if you add the Earth, which we can see pretty much any time, you get to see all 8 planets of our solar system all in one go.
That's fantastic. A quick funny side story. I remember distinctly one fall. I was very young. I went outside and the moon was so big and orange, and I ran inside. Mom, you can see Mars. Oh man,
Yeah.
children.
Well, and it's easy to mix up which one is which, and unless you watch the sky regularly, you sort of don't notice these patterns. This planetary parade, we can actually see all of the planets usually for a couple of months each year, but it's not always in the evening. It's not always at a time of year where we get clearer skies. So, people just we've lost touch with those patterns that, a couple of generations ago, when many of us would have been on the farm or something like that, we would have gotten to know this cycles of the sky like the back of our hand. But today, it's more of a hobby than an essential of life, and a lot of people only notice it when something like this happens.
Absolutely. So the way that they're mostly visible to the naked eye, or with a big binocular, or whatever you have it, how often does this occur?
Um, this is something that happens, probably every 2 or 3 years or so. It's not super rare. Um, Once you get down to exactly how close all the planets appear in the sky and things like that, you can essentially make this as rare as you want. This kind of situation won't repeat itself for many thousands of years, but we'll see something very similar to it in a couple of years. But yeah, the planets, they're always kind of lined up in a way. They all go around the sun in the same plane as us. So if you stretch the analogy, they're always lined up. But this is a great time to see them this particular time of the year.
Fantastic. If someone is interested in grabbing a telescope or binoculars, what might be some things they can see? Are people able to spot Saturn's rings? Anything like that going on?
Yeah, well, Saturn, you need a telescope to see the rings, but almost any telescope will do it. Except at this time of the year, it's down so low that it's really hard to focus well on things that are low in the sky. But even a good pair of binoculars will show the moons of Jupiter. They look like 4 little stars lined up with the central planet, which is really kind of cool. And a telescope will even show the Great Red Spot and that kind of stuff. I've been watching Jupiter for the last few months with my telescope, and it's spectacular. The other planets, either they're small and so they don't show off very much, or in some cases they're just covered with clouds and we can't really see any details, like Venus, for example. But Venus is actually a crescent phase right now, kind of like the moon would be a crescent phase. And that, I forgot to mention, the moon is joining the whole planetary parade over the next couple of days as well. So we can see it night by night pass each one of these planets.
Is there something special happening Friday, February 28th in all of this, or is that just, yeah?
Well, yeah. So I guess Friday, February 28th would be the date that the planets are technically within the smallest area, but they change so slowly. And there's other factors, like, for example, if you live farther south, Saturn would be easier to see than it is up here in Canada. So there's all these sort of local variations. But when a story goes out on the internet, people take it and assume that it applies worldwide. And you really get a different view of the sky from here in Canada than you would, say, in the Caribbean or in South America or things like that. So there's always a little bit of that localization.
Absolutely. Speaking of that, every night I've gone out for the past couple of weeks, I notice Venus. It is very bright.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it's brilliant. And I think it's one of my favorite planets because we always see it kind of close to the sun, so it's up against the sunset colors, and I mean, who doesn't like watching the sunset, right? So it's always a beautiful sight.
Well, Scott, thank you so much for taking the time to talk a little bit more about these visible planets, and we really appreciate it.
No problem. Thanks a lot.